Good morning, this is Shelby Law with the Great Basin Fire Potential Briefing for Thursday, June 28, 2018. The main fire potential impacts are coming in the short term, particularly today, with some very strong winds across the southern and eastern portions of the Great Basin, combined with very low relative humidities and an unstable atmosphere. We're looking for some critical fire weather for today. For tomorrow, the winds relax just a bit and will remain gusty mainly over portions of eastern Utah, but the winds won't be quite as strong tomorrow as we're expecting for this afternoon. Sunny skies and dry conditions prevailed across the geographic area yesterday. And fire activity has picked up in the last 24 hours. There's a new start down in far southwest Utah called the West Valley Fire that has remained pretty active through the overnight hours. A Type 2 team has been ordered for that fire. And a few other fires across the geographic area, including over Nevada, and then also a larger fire along the Utah-Idaho border. Winds today will certainly exacerbate any efforts to control those fires, particularly across the south and east. The observed precipitation percent of average is shown here for the past 14 and 30 days. We're really still looking at this very dry trend across southern Nevada and much of Utah, especially the south and the east, but even northern Utah has been very dry for the past 14 days. Our fire danger indices have been on the rise for the past week, and currently ERCs are above the 90th percentile for much of the state of Utah and even above the 97th percentile for many stations over central and eastern and southern Utah. Many of these areas are close to the historical records for the time of year, which right now is peak fire season on average for much of Utah, and so we're close to those records for the time of year, and there's no significant relief in terms of precipitation in sight for the next at least week or so. This morning's satellite imagery shows a broad area of low pressure moving into the western U.S. Out ahead of this area of low pressure, we're seeing those very strong winds kick up again this afternoon across Utah with very low relative humidities. There's a wind shift associated with this trough that's moving through Idaho today and will move into northern Utah later this afternoon. This will drop temperatures just a bit and certainly change the wind direction. Certainly something to be of note on those fires today as a critical factor. And any precipitation will be limited to the mountains of central Idaho. High-risk triggers have been issued for much of Utah for these strong winds moving in ahead of this area of low pressure. Wind speeds will be upward of 40 to 45 miles an hour, expected especially over southwest and central Utah this afternoon. Minimum relative humidities are in the single digits, even as low as 3 or 4% across the far southern Great Basin. By Friday, that trough will move further east, and the winds will decrease over much of western Utah, but we'll still see some gusty winds over far southern and southeast Utah. Temperatures will be cooler on Friday behind this dry cold front. The strongest winds once again will be over eastern and southern Utah on Friday, with continued very low relative humidities across the far south and southeast. Conditions will be a little less critical across the north, with cooler temperatures behind that front. On Saturday, cooler west to northwest flow prevails, with temperatures remaining below average for the time of year, particularly across the northern two-thirds of the geographic area. Conditions will still remain hot and dry across the far south. And winds will be generally much lighter across the geographic area for Saturday, with some of the very lowest relative humidities really only being seen across the very far south of Utah and Nevada. The 3-day precipitation accumulations shown here really only show some very light precipitation coming to the central Idaho mountains as this area of low pressure scoots through today and tomorrow. Dry westerly flow is in place for Sunday, as well as Monday. We'll start to see another trough of low pressure move into the Pacific Northwest. This will increase the wind speeds once again, particularly over western Nevada and portions of the central Great Basin, including eastern Nevada and western Utah. These winds will continue on Tuesday as that low pressure drops a little bit further south and east. And once again, looking for that wind corridor to be across mainly Utah. Some winds may continue on Wednesday. We'll be keeping an eye on this low pressure system to see where it goes and if it is going to allow any moisture to come up into particularly southern and eastern Utah. So we'll be watching that feature next week. The 7-day precipitation totals are the same as the 3-day, really just looking for a little bit of precip coming into central Idaho. The rest of the geographic area will remain very dry through the week. The extended forecast from the Climate Prediction Center for the week of July 5th through the 11th is calling for above normal temperatures across the geographic area, especially over Utah and up into southeast Idaho, with an above normal chance for precipitation over southern Utah. This outlook does indicate that the monsoons will start to move in by the second week of July, and we're definitely watching this to see really how much moisture comes up into the Great Basin, particularly Utah, to give us some relief. This concludes today's fire potential briefing. Please check back tomorrow for the latest updates.